Alright, so hope you guys have been enjoying the list. We're going to move on now to the top 5. Once again, I hope you got, like I said, my list, my rules, and, there's actually, I'm going to say right up ahead, there's actually only one Marvel. The rest are DC's in this list, so, yeah. But anyway, we're going to move on now to, number 5 is another pairing that I don't think gets a lot of love and respect, and it's kind of sad too, because these two really did complement one another. And I'm talking about Big Barda and Scott Free, aka Mr. Miracle. Yep, those two. Like I said, now you're probably wondering, why are these guys so high up in my list? Well, because first off, they're two underrated characters, and they really do love it. They really did love each other. I can't really say love anymore because Big Barda was killed during the Death of the New God storyline. However, it's been speculated that she might make a return soon, so one can only see. Now, Scott, it's so funny too. First off, I want to say that this relationship is so funny because Barda, I know this artwork's a bit off, but Barda just towers over Scott, and she's impressively stronger than him, but he's the world's greatest escape artist, so I don't know, that probably didn't tip it out, but yeah, it's a fun relationship they had. They're acted out like husband and wife, although Barda, I think, for the most part, wore the pants in the relationship. I mean, you try having an argument with a girl who could break Wonder Woman's jaw. And then see how much balls you have after that. Yeah, no amount of escape artist is going to save you from that argument. Yeah, but, world's greatest escape argument can't solve an argument with a woman who can probably tear down a house with her bare hands. But anyway, it was really sad to see Barda die, and you actually felt Scott's pain at the end of that whole arc. But they worked really well together. They were a great husband and wife team, on and off the superhero sidelines. So they were always good, and I really hope Barda does come back because Scott really needs her. He's been just kind of off after that. But anyway, moving on to number 4. Number 4 is a pairing that's been around since, the 40s? But yeah, these two have remained loyal together through thick and through, and I just love both characters very much. I'm glad they're still together. Hopefully they stay together during the relaunch. But yeah, these two are, I love these characters very much, like I said. And coming in at number 4 is Arthur Curry, Aquaman, and his wife Mira. Yeah, now the reason why I love Aquaman and Mira is, like I said, these two were more or less meant for each other. These two love each other through thick and through. I mean, they've been through all kinds of insane shit. I mean, the death of their children, the almost destruction of Atlantis, the fact that Arthur died and was a Black Lantern, and she was a Red Lantern during Blackest Night. It was just, insane for these two, but these two always just stayed together through all of it. And it was just great to see them, work out their problems, and they're still remaining as husband and wife for the most part, at least to my knowledge. But yeah, I've always loved Aquaman and Mira, because Mira, I always felt that Mira was, Aquaman's, she was Arthur's anchor, no pun intended. Whenever Arthur was just so depressed, he always had Mira there, to, basically bring him back down to earth. Kind of like some of the two of the people coming up next, but yeah, and Arthur, Arthur loved her no matter what other woman came his way that tried to, have some snuggle time with him. Arthur remained loyal to Mira, which is something you don't really see a lot in comics. That these two, by now, by some corporate idiots' standard to make extra buck, it's like, hey, let's get rid of Aquaman and Mira's relationship. Well, the closest thing was when Aquaman died, but now they're back together again after he was brought back during Brightest Day. But all in all, hope they stay together for longer than the other relationships on here, because the next three are on and off, or 2 of them are off now. But anyway, enough of that. So now we're going to move on to number 3. Now, number 3 has been one of my personal favorite relationships for the longest time, and thank you, Siegel and Schuster family, you're ruining it. Yeah, you guys already know who I'm talking about. But, yeah. I don't need to beat around the bush of, but this is not a rant. This is not a rant about the pairing. This is just me expressing, my my love for the relationship between these two characters, and you already know who I'm talking about. It's none other than the Superman and Lois Lane. I'm gonna hate to see this go because Superman and Lois Lane are no longer gonna be married after when the relaunch hits. So I'm really gonna hate that. But yeah, for the most part, looking back on it, at least I have the comics where they're still together. So I guess that gives me some form of comfort. But anyway, Superman and Lois Lane's relationship, it was basically, that was always meant to happen. It's not like with Peter and Gwen, where Gwen died and he found Mary Jane. I mean, Superman and Lois were always meant to be together. Again with Aquaman, same thing. It goes with Aquaman and Mira. With Mira to Aquaman, Lois was Superman's anchor to the world. Like there are plenty of times where he just felt like just giving up and quitting being Superman, or even quitting being Clark Kent at times. But Lois was always there to be his anchor to the world. He always had something to come home to. Sometimes Lois kind of was bothered by the fact that her husband was probably the most busiest superhero in the world. But on the other hand, she didn't treat it like, I'm married to the world's greatest superhero. She treated it like, it's my husband's other job. And she put herself for the most part, before her needs, and understood that the world needed Superman more than she needed Superman for the most part. And I love that about it, because she was a very understanding character to both. She loved both Clark Kent and Superman. Originally Superman, but then she grew to love Clark Kent and learned that they're both one and the same. Need I say more? But yeah, like I said, I'm really hating that Siegel and Schuster, one of the things is that, Superman and Lois Lane can't be a relationship anymore. But then again, there are some people at DC who didn't like Superman and Lois Lane together. I don't see how. I mean, they were just perfect for one another. But, whatever. All in all, hate to see it go, but, for old classic time's sake, it was always fun to see Superman save Lois Lane for the most ridiculous situations and still them be great husband and wife. So, much props to that. Now, number 2 is the only Marvel group pairing on here, and this one has been broken up, and I hate it. Every time I look at this character's book, I wish these two were back together, and you guys already probably know who I'm talking about. So, without further ado, I let you into my second favorite comic book pairing, and that's Spider-Man and Mary Jane. I hate you, Quesada. It's not like with Siegel and Schuster was legal issues. Here it was just you being a jerk. But then anyway, I'm not here to talk about that. I can't think of anyone who didn't, any comic book fan, any of my friends, subscribers for the most part, who didn't like Spider-Man and Mary Jane's relationship. These two really complemented one another. Again, it was Lois, why am I keep mixing them up? Mary Jane, who was anchoring Spider-Man, Peter Parker. She loved both Peter Parker and Spider-Man. She loved them both separately, rather than Black Cat, who just loved Spider-Man and not Peter Parker. The other thing is that, again, with Aquaman and Superman, Mary Jane acted as like a, something for Spider-Man to come home to after a long day of getting the crap beat out of him by a supervillain. At least he could go home to a loving wife who understands that the world needs Spider-Man more than Mary Jane needs Spider-Man. So, there in itself was the reason why I think a lot of people gravitated towards that. The other thing is that everyone envious of Peter Parker's wife. I mean, she was a supermodel, for God's sakes. I mean, you're a superhero and you're coming home to that every night. Awesome. And I mean that with no sarcasm in my words. I mean, a photographer by day and a web-slinging warrior by night, and you come home to probably one of the hottest supermodels or hottest drawn characters in comic book history every night. epic win for Peter for the most part. But again, like once again, I hate that Marvel. I still hate Marvel. The fact that Marvel ended the relationship between Spider-Man and Mary Jane. And I have no grudge against Gwen Stacy, but she died a long time ago. We kind of had to move on from that. But for the most part, Mary Jane and Spider-Man really did complement one another. And, it was just always fun to see them together. And I hate to see them no longer together. And I really don't like Carly Cooper. But that's a whole other story together. And now we're going to move on to number one. Number one, DC pairing. This one has been around since... wow, this has been around a long time. I mean, probably longer than Aquaman and Mira's relationship. This one has been, written and rewritten. It's been an on-again, off-again relationship. But no matter what, these two have always stuck together in the end. And I'm talking about a Bruce Wayne, Batman, and Selina Kyle, Catwoman. Yep, there's my number one. Bruce may be my number 3 DC hero, but him and Catwoman's relationship is just astonishing. Like I said, they're the two sides of different coins. They're two sides of the law, but yet they still have that a Romeo and Juliet kind of thing, kind of like with Wolverine and Mariko, except less tragic. And again, unlike a lot of the other relationships on here, Batman and Catwoman's relationship seems to be unanimously liked by a lot of writers. Paul Dini, Jeff Loeb, even Jude Winnick, and Jude Winnick has said that he likes the relationship, but I don't know why he's kind of ending it. But who knows? That's not going to last long. A lot of DC a lot of Batman writers have liked the relationship between Batman and Catwoman. And even Bruce has said if you guys have read Batman: Heart of Hush, it's where Bruce more or less says that he'll always love Selina no matter what. And hopefully they'll keep that in the relaunch. But, yeah. Selina, no matter who she dates, I mean, she's been with another guy called Sam Bradley, but her heart belongs to Bruce. And, likewise to her, Bruce with Selina. I mean, it's always been fun to see their cat and mouse, no pun intended, relationship. That's on again, off again, but when it's on, it's really on. Batman Hush kind of proved that these two, have a lot of love for one another. I mean, look at this picture right here. It's probably one of the most iconic Batman and Catwoman scenes in comic books, so much props to that. So, totally lost my train of thought, but yeah, these two really complement one another. I mean, Bruce has been like the grim and gritty person, and unlike the whole Anchor thing, Catwoman's a very independent character. I mean, all the women on here have been very independent, but out of all of them, Selina's probably the most independent. She doesn't let Bruce run her life. If she wants to be a bad guy, she can be a bad guy, and she basically tells Bruce no. She's like the first woman, like outside of like maybe Wonder Woman, but there have been a few, but not a lot of women can say no to Bruce, but Selina's definitely like the number one to say, And she's a very independent person. I think that's one of the reasons why, another reason why Bruce is so attracted to her is because she doesn't want to be, she's more or less, like she's always said, no one can cage this kitty. And I think that's another reason why Bruce is so attracted to her. But all in all, I love the relationship out of all. Bruce and Catwoman. Batman and Catwoman's relationship. I've always loved the banter between the two, the tension between the both of them, and that's one relationship I can't really see ending permanently because it's sometimes off, but then they get back together again. And now that Selina knows that Batman is Bruce Wayne, it just makes the relationship a lot more interesting. And here's to hoping the relaunch keeps that too. But all in all, hope you guys have. I hope you guys have liked this list. Once again, like I said, it's my list, my rules, but hope you guys have enjoyed this. I know probably my number one was predictable, but that's okay. But anyway, hope you guys, like I said, enjoyed this listen later.